happens when unmanned warships become the front line of a global showdown. In the treacherous tides of the South China Sea, the sparks of superpower rivalry are already flying, and the Philippines is fast becoming the launch pad for a 21st century arms race. The Indo-Pacific is no longer just a geopolitical buzzword. It's the arena where the US and China are locked in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, with military encounters growing more hostile by the week. Warships collide, coast guards clash, drones buzz overhead. At the heart of this rising storm lies a small but mighty player, the Philippines. Its geographical location isn't just strategic, it's surgical. Enter Oyster Bay, a once quiet naval corner, now transforming into a futuristic fortress for US unmanned naval systems. Autonomous sea sentinels built to surveil, deter, and if provoked, strike. This isn't just an upgrade in tech, it's a declaration of intent, a message to Beijing that Washington will not blink. But this surge of silicon-fueled deterrence raises a chilling question. Are we stabilizing the region or setting the stage for a robotic confrontation at sea? The deepening US-Philippines alliance, highlighted by the creation of these unmanned operational bases, represents a tectonic shift in Indo-Pacific strategy. It aims to outpace Chinese aggression with innovation and rapid response. But in doing so, it also risks militarizing fragile waters and accelerating the very conflict it seeks to prevent. Once the site of a dramatic military breakup, the Philippines is now back in America's strategic embrace with a high-tech twist. What began as a quiet rotational agreement has transformed into a cornerstone of U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy. As tensions with China surge in the South China Sea, the U.S.-Philippine Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement is no longer just a legal instrument. It's a launch pad for cutting-edge operations, including unmanned maritime systems, rapid deployable infrastructure, and joint force integration. Signed in 2014 and revitalized under the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., EDCA allows the United States to station forces on a rotational basis at select Philippine military bases.
The Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, serves as recognition by both sides that there is even more we can do together to support the alliance and to promote peace and security in the region.
Its original purpose focused on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. But today's mission has evolved far beyond that. With expanding infrastructure and shared defense goals, EDCA now serves as a forward operating framework to counterbalance China's regional ambitions, particularly in maritime domains. This alliance is rooted in a complex history. In the aftermath of World War II, the U.S. maintained massive permanent installations in the Philippines. Clark Air Base and Subic Bay Naval Base were once among the largest outside the continental United States. But in 1991, driven by nationalist sentiment and shifting domestic priorities, the Philippine Senate voted to end America's military presence. The relationship cooled until now. With Beijing growing bolder in its maritime claims, Manila has welcomed Washington's return with unprecedented enthusiasm, leading to the expansion of EDCA sites and new projects that signal a new era of strategic intimacy. One of the clearest examples of this transformation is the development of Naval Detachment Oyster Bay in Palawan. Strategically perched on the western coast near the contested Second Thomas Shoal, this facility already hosts Philippine Navy Cyclone-class patrol vessels and marine units. But its role is being dramatically upgraded. As of May 30th, 2025, the U.S. Department of Defense announced the construction of a maintenance and repair facility tailored to support unmanned surface vessels, USVs, a technological leap in maritime surveillance and reconnaissance operations. These upgrades include infrastructure to service 38-foot vessels, a 5-ton gantry crane, multi-purpose storage and meeting rooms, and enhancements to launch capabilities. More importantly, this facility will serve as a home for an emerging fleet of unmanned assets. Currently, it supports 1 Devil Ray T-38 and 4 Mantas, T-12 drones, autonomous platforms equipped with ISR payloads, long-range communications, and Starlink-enabled real-time data transfer. These vessels patrol sensitive waters, collecting intelligence and asserting presence without placing human lives at risk. Operated jointly by U.S. personnel and Philippine forces under Task Force Ayungin, these platforms redefine what it means to show the flag in contested territory. Beyond Oyster Bay, the U.S. is funding a broader web of defense-related infrastructure projects in the Philippines, some extending outside the 9 official EDCA sites. One major initiative is a logistics storage complex near Subic Bay and the Clark Economic Freeport Zone, expected by 2026 to house up to 100 personnel across 33,000 square meters. These facilities aim not only to streamline joint logistics, but also to support the Philippines' broader self-reliant defense posture, SRDP Revitalization Act, an ambitious drive to boost indigenous defense capability through international cooperation. This growing cooperation is underpinned by a clear strategic doctrine. In 2025, both nations signed a joint vision statement identifying key areas of collaboration: unmanned systems, logistics, and ship maintenance. This vision dovetails with the creation of the Maritime Security Consortium, launched in November 2024 by the U.S. Department of Defense. With up to $95 million in annual public-private funding, this initiative fuels research, training, and deployment of unmanned maritime systems across Southeast Asia, often integrated into large-scale exercises like Balikatan. What we're witnessing is more than just a logistical upgrade. It's the birth of a distributed, networked, and high-tech deterrence strategy with the Philippines as its nerve center. In this new frontier of U.S.-Philippine defense cooperation, unmanned vessels aren't just machines, they're messengers. They deliver a quiet but unmissable warning. The Indo-Pacific is being reshaped, and the front line is no longer theoretical. It's here, and it's moving fast. While the U.S. and the Philippines deepen their strategic bond, China remains unyielding in its ambitions, asserting sweeping territorial claims across the South China Sea under the infamous 9-dash line. These claims overlap with the maritime zones of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and others, yet Beijing justifies them through contested historical rights, ignoring international legal rulings and fueling a volatile standoff. China's strategy doesn't rely solely on open warfare. It thrives in the murky realm of gray zone tactics, a hybrid mix of civilian, paramilitary, and coercive maneuvers that fall just short of triggering a full-blown military response. These tactics are designed to incrementally shift control on the ground while denying adversaries a clear justification for escalation. In the waters around Scarborough Shoal, Second Thomas Shoal, and Sabina Shoal, this has become a brutal reality for Philippine forces. Between 2023 and 2024, Chinese forces repeatedly harassed Philippine vessels using water cannons, ramming maneuvers, acoustic devices, and even direct boarding attempts, blurring the line between provocation and act of war. In a chilling incident in June 2024, a Philippine Navy SEAL lost his thumb during a fierce resistance to a Chinese boarding operation at Second Thomas Shoal. Meanwhile, a separate encounter at Sabina Shoal saw the BRP Teresa Magbanua suffer heavy damage, forcing a retreat due to critical supply shortages. As tensions mount, China has accused the Philippines of illegal construction and reclamation at Sabina Shoal, a claim discredited by independent academic research. The battle for truth now runs parallel to the battle for territory. Unsurprisingly, China views the growing U.S. presence in the Philippines as a direct provocation. In official rhetoric, Beijing has blasted the expansion of EDCA as a destabilizing act and a threat to regional peace.
美菲的军事合作不得损害中方在南海的主权和海洋权益，更不能以此为菲律宾的非法主张站台背书。中方将继续采取必要的措施，坚定捍卫自身的领土主权和海洋权益，维护南海的和平稳定。
For China, this isn't just about islands or resources. It's about power, prestige, and preventing what it sees as encirclement by an American-led security architecture. As unmanned vessels, rotating troops, and new bases spring up closer to Chinese-claimed waters, the the risk of miscalculation grows ever more real. As the US-Philippine alliance deepens, the region stands at a precarious crossroads where efforts to enhance deterrence risk becoming sources of provocation. Officially, the alliance's objective is clear: to maintain access, deterrence, and sovereignty in the West Philippine Sea. Yet with every new deployment, radar installation, or unmanned patrol, the margin for miscalculation narrows. In an environment already rife with mistrust and aggressive maneuvers, the presence of advanced American assets and increasingly direct standoffs raise the specter of unintended escalation. As one expert from the Carnegie Endowment starkly warned, hostility has reached a level that makes war thinkable and perhaps even likely within the next decade. The political and military stakes have never been higher. In 2024, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. drew a sharp red line by declaring that any Filipino casualty resulting from Chinese aggression could be seen as an act of war. That statement wasn't just domestic posturing, it was backed by the United States.
If a Filipino citizen is killed by a willful act, that is, I think, very, very close to what we define as an act of war, and therefore we will respond accordingly. And our treaty partners, I believe, also hold that same standard for when the actions, with the joint action, will be undertaken in support of any such incident in the Philippines. We already have suffered injury.
Washington has repeatedly reaffirmed that its 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty with the Philippines covers any armed attack on Philippine public vessels in the South China Sea, thereby tying American response protocols directly to regional skirmishes.
I want to be very clear. The United States defense commitment to the Philippines is ironclad. The United States defense agreement with the Philippines is ironclad. Any attack on the Filipino aircraft vessels or armed forces will invoke our mutual defense treaty with the Philippines.
In practical terms, a deadly incident at sea could now activate one of the longest-standing bilateral defense pacts in the Indo-Pacific. Complicating matters further is the Taiwan factor. Several enhanced defense cooperation agreement sites, particularly in northern Luzon, are within strategic range of the Taiwan Strait. In the event of a cross-strait crisis, analysts suggest the Philippines could serve as a critical rear access zone for U.S. forces or even a staging area for civilian evacuation. Yet this proximity creates its own dilemma. While some in Washington might see the Philippines as a strategic linchpin, voices from the Quincy Institute and others caution that Manila risks being drawn into a broader U.S.-China confrontation, especially over Taiwan, by association rather than intent. Meanwhile, the Indo-Pacific is witnessing a regional arms race in slow motion. Defense spending across Southeast Asia is climbing, with countries acquiring more advanced weaponry and strengthening joint operations. The Philippines, in particular, has embarked on a sweeping 15-year modernization drive, securing BrahMos cruise missiles from India and integrating U.S. Typhoon missile systems into its evolving posture. These shifts are matched by expanded joint patrols with allies including Japan, Australia, Canada, and even interest from France and India. What's emerging is a more tightly knit, but also more militarized regional security web, increasingly aligned with US-led efforts to counterbalance Beijing. Yet for all the hardware and alliances, the underlying diplomatic picture remains bleak. Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro has noted a persistent deficit of trust in China, a sentiment widely echoed across the region.
And thus, for dialogue to be effective, it must be coupled with trust. And China has a lot of trust building to do to be an effective negotiating partner in dispute settlement. We have to call a spade a spade. And that's what we see, and that is the biggest stumbling block to dispute resolution or dialogue with China, that deficit of trust.
At the same time, economic interdependence complicates confrontation. Both the US and China remain deeply invested in the Southeast Asian markets, and ASEAN nations, keen to preserve autonomy, continue to walk a delicate tightrope, resisting full alignment with either side. In this fragile balance, dialogue and de-escalation mechanisms are more vital than ever. Military-to-military communication channels, rules of engagement protocols, and multilateral forums may not prevent every crisis, but they remain essential tools for avoiding the one mistake that could tip the entire region into war. The establishment of new U.S. facilities in the Philippines, anchored by the strategically positioned Oyster Bay hub, marks a decisive entry into a new era of strategic competition in the Indo-Pacific. Far from symbolic, these developments signal a robust American commitment to defending maritime access, upholding international law, and countering China's increasingly aggressive tactics in a region that now serves as the heartbeat of global trade and security. Yet with expanded capabilities come escalating stakes. The specificity of defense infrastructure, the operational deployment of unmanned systems, and the Philippines' sharp diplomatic red lines paint a picture of a theater where tensions are no longer abstract, they are operational, immediate, and potentially combustible. As alliances strengthen and arsenals grow, the risk of miscalculation rises in parallel. The challenge for policymakers now is to strike a precarious balance, projecting strength without cornering adversaries, deterring aggression without triggering confrontation. In this high-stakes chessboard, prudence, not provocation, must guide the path forward, lest the effort to prevent conflict becomes the catalyst for one. Thank you for tuning into our channel. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of global issues.